And that's why a lot of them are, me and you behind a closed door, or myself and the commander and the superintendent behind a closed door, because we got to respect people's privacy a bit and just tell the people that need to know about the situation. So that way, say someone's in some legal trouble and it actually, works itself out where no one gets in trouble, then we haven't embarrassed that person and, give them a figurative scarlet letter in the squadron. So that's a real concern. And I really think about that every time something happens. Even when something big does happen, we know there's going to be a whole big rumor mill, which is why you'll see us addressed in a lot of this in a commander's call or something, and talking about, okay, hey, we had a DUI, this is the impact, and what do we do about it? But maybe you should think about this for when you guys are becoming, commanders of a flight or of a squadron, is that every decision that you make, with whoever your enlisted advisor is, maybe a shirt, maybe another senior NCO that you're married up to, is not just what's going to be the impact on the one person that you're impacting, but what's your impact on the entire organization, because it does affect people. I mean, we saw with some of the bigger things we've happened this year is that the way we treat a situation as far as discipline or something like that, we might do the same thing the next time, because the situations are very similar, and we need to apply a consistent standard rather than creating any type of perception of favoritism. And it was kind of touched on that when Colonel Kramer, you were talking about how I have to not create any perception of impropriety. Well, that extends into how we make decisions too, because if we hook up one guy or gal because we really like what they do, and then we don't apply the same standard to someone else that maybe isn't doing anything wrong, but we're not as fond of them, then that's going to show. And then you show yourself as an imbalanced leader. I guess the only other as far as the tour, and if you're encouraging any of your folks to become first sergeants, if you got a hot tech sergeant, that wants to take the diamond here soon in their career, or something of that nature, a master sergeant that is ready for a change, it's actually a voluntary system now. You still have to get approval from your commander, myself, and the superintendent. Have that conversation before they click the button in AMS. But now it's gone to that system where we only want to take people that want to be first sergeants, because the DSD system was filling the books with people, but it wasn't filling the books with people that had a passion for this job. And you kind of have to want to do this, because otherwise you probably won't be as effective as you could be. So that process has changed a little bit. So if anybody asks you about it, please refer them to me, and then we can have the front office conversations on that before they apply. And then also one other change in the AFI is that it is actually a 4-year tour for everybody that isn't air crew. So if you're sending a flyer up there, they do 3 years, because we understand the operational constraints of what you guys do, and we want to get them back in the career field before they spend 4 years out of it and forget all the neat stuff they have up in their head about being a flight engineer or being a load master. So the Air Force does recognize that the ops needs their people back, which is why you guys only get 3 years of this. But that's me and what I do. And if you got questions, please fire away.
Thanks, Shirt. Yeah, especially that bit about policy and discipline, especially for the young people starting out. You don't really think about that. You're very kind of focused on yourself and getting yourself spun up, and your vision is a little limited. But yeah, it's something to realize when you guys start moving into AFC and flight commander and above. You have to start thinking about things like perception, impact on the unit, not just your own little circle, but how it's going to play with the NCOs and airmen. So that's a good time when you start enacting policy or giving feedback on policy or discipline. Go talk to the shirt, talk to the soup, grab yourself a senior NCO and kind of talk it out. They'll give you some perspective that you might not have had before. I'm going to pause and just open it up to the group for questions. I don't like to hog the conversation. Anything about the first sergeant job, NCO perspectives, or the maintenance world that you got for the shirt? Please fire away.
I got a quick one real quick. Can you explain like which jobs, I know you kind of touched on DSD a little bit, but it's definitely something that really affects our enlisted corps, both professionally and emotionally. Can you explain like what jobs are DSD, how the enlistment, like on one half, and then the other, maybe at the end of the conversation, talk about how the enlisted assignment system works?
Okay, so first with DSD, there's actually quite a few jobs that you can apply for DSD, and it's called developmental special duty. So, I mean, that could be working in the post office at an overseas location, first sergeant, airman dorm leader, or some of the other ones. Geez, there's a host of them.
I think like recruiting, PME instructor, MTI, things like that.
Yeah, all of those positions where you're not really doing your job, but you're out there, and you already have to be an NCO to do something like that. So we can't raise somebody in that job, from the beginning, because obviously nobody's going to want to talk to an A1C recruiter or listen to a senior. Well, sometimes a senior airman MTI, but very rarely. So that process is really controlled by the superintendent, and then we try to include as much leadership as possible when we select those people, because each individual AFSC in the DSD program has a different list of requirements that make you eligible or ineligible for that job. Like mine requires a CCAF. Your most recent PT test can't be on any exemptions at all. No. So if you hurt your knee, then you have to heal up, pass on a full PT test, and then you can go. And each job has that host of requirements that the chief has to sit and sort through all of that before he recommends anybody, because anybody that gets pushed up to the wing's going to look at him, and then anybody that doesn't meet the requirements is either out, or they have to have an exception to policy to still leave the career field and go do that job. But the upside, of course, is that as far as our promotion system goes, you might see how a job like that is going to stand out on a senior master sergeant board, where you're trying to be in the top 3% of the enlisted corps. So you've got to do a few things that are outside just running a normal career track. So they're very important to us in terms of development, to make you stand out and teach you a little bit more about the Air Force than what you knew. As far as the assignment system goes, that's actually a little bit easier on us than it is on you guys. I have no determinate date of when I'm going to go somewhere, so there's a little stress there, but at the same time, if you're not asking to go somewhere, you probably aren't going anywhere. So like I've been at Travis since January of 2011. So if I make it to January next year, I'll spend a decade at the same base. And at this point, I worked in the same building the entire time. So since I just spent 8 years downstairs from you guys previous, now that doesn't mean you can't get non-vol, arbitrarily when say they need your AFSC to go to Korea for a year, or they do some type of command leveling to move you around, or if you've constantly updated your dream sheet for say extended long tour, you'll probably get picked up because aside from all the calling of functionals at AFPC looks at who's volunteering before they look at time on station. But after they get through the volunteers, whoever's got the highest time on station is most hot to move, I guess is the way to look at that.
Hey, sure. I'm not sure if you already talked about this, but was there something that happened that made you want to become a shirt, or one day you were like, you know what, I want to help people, I want to be a shirt?
Well, that's kind of interesting, and I should have touched on that already, is that I actually didn't have a lot of plans to become a shirt initially. I got pulled in under the DSD program without volunteering, but my chief came to me and said, hey, I talked about how if you hurt yourself, and don't do a full PT test, well, our number one guy had that happen. And they said, hey, well, we want to make you the number one guy, and your name is going to go straight to 18th Air Force to become a shirt. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to be a shirt, because I heard that's what it is. But my leadership took the time to recognize that I was the type of person that would be able to handle this type of job. I didn't have a lot of plans. I was really focusing on the operational craft side of it, because I wanted to get out of the tool room, because I was running that as a master sergeant, and I wanted to go be a pro super, because even though that's a very stressful job, I wanted to be in the operational thick of it for a little bit. And I actually didn't get picked up that cycle. I went on a deployment to the deed, and I got submitted a second time right before I left. And I found out while I was at the deed that I was picked up to be a shirt. So I was sitting there, and I was working in the 8th EAMS, doing occasionally seeing a few of you guys come through. But as you know, you don't go through the deed a whole lot. And I got this email to my home station email that I couldn't read because it was encrypted, but it was from the AMC functional that said, first sergeant selection, Master Sergeant Myers. And that was all I could read was the subject line. So I had to get these people to email me, this chief to email me back, at my how you deed email, so that I could see what it said and confirm that yes, I was going to be a shirt, and knew that my last hurrah in maintenance for a while was going to be out there. Because by the time I got back, I had a quick interview with Chief Crowder, since he's my functional. He confirmed that I was good to go to be a shirt, and said, oh, by the way, we're not going to waste time putting you back in maintenance. You're going to go be the shirt for the 22nd, because we're about to have an opening there right away, and we might as well just get you started in the job early. So I came upstairs with 0 training and 2 weeks with Sergeant Moniz to learn everything I could learn about the job, but knowing that 80% of what I needed to know was being a good senior NCO and asking the right questions when I didn't know the answer.
Hey, Shirt, it's Lieutenant Dawson.
Yes, sir.
2 questions. Do you retain the diamond after your shirt tour is over? Or is it something that you only wear while you're serving as a shirt? And then second question is, how do you alter your techniques for like building rapport with, you know, your younger airmen versus like your middle tier NCOs, and then tailoring it to more of your peer level senior NCOs?
Okay. Well, first question, that's an easy one. You only wear the diamond while you're in the position. So I get 4 years of it, and I would only get to wear it more if I extended in the program or I retired as a first sergeant. Beyond that, I got to take it off to go back to the career field, because otherwise there'd be a whole bunch of diamonds running around base that are in operational jobs, and you kind of want to just designate those people that are serving in the position. But as far as techniques go, that's one of those things that is a little bit of feel for who your audience is, who you're dealing with, and what you need to convince them of or talk to them about. So if I've got, you know, a 19-year-old A1C in my office, I might be a little more directive and, you know, and ask probably 70% of the questions that I would normally ask, because I'm just trying to pull enough out of them and make them comfortable, but also they need a little bit more push to where they need to get. And they, you know, it's a little more telling of a 19-year-old than, you know, even because there's a difference between them and even say a young lieutenant OIC that comes in and wants some advice on how to handle their troop. Now that I might handle them a little more like I'm handling a staff sergeant with a dash more respect, because I'm going to take that person and we'll talk about the how and the why they're going to counsel their airman or NCO. So that's more of a coaching session than a directive. But I think the principles of counseling apply though to any level that you're talking to, where you should be asking as many questions as you can and to lead someone to the answer rather than being completely directive, commanding all the time, where the person doesn't feel as if they took part in the decision. And so can seem like a little bit of trickery, but at the same time, you hate people walking out of the office going, well, I didn't take part in that. Shirt just told me what to do. And then you end up micromanaging every aspect of every situation because you didn't empower anybody else to make a decision besides you. So, and some you're really going to have to think about as you get in a higher level of command is you need people's buy-in, and you need people to lead and make a lot of minor decisions that are not beneath the commander, because the commander owns all those decisions, but you got to let people take ownership and learn how to lead themselves, so that you're not, working 24 hours a day on every decision. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, sure. I think that's a really interesting point that a lot of people don't think about, especially when you're newer. You walk into an office and you talk to somebody and you think you're having like a straight conversation, but I mean, the phrase has negative connotations, but I'll say ulterior motives. I think some of the best leaders out there, they're trying to teach you how to fish. They're not just going to hand you the fish. They maybe give you just enough information to get you started so you can kind of learn and grow for yourself. And it kind of blows your mind when you first realize that that sort of thing happens, you know. And you're actually being mentored while you may be asking a question about mentorship. So that's kind of cool. Any other questions for the shirt? I'm about to call on somebody. Just kidding, I'm not going to do that. Shirt, I want to touch on the maintenance piece, because it's really cool, you know, just coming upstairs and we got that whole big squadron down there. I'm wondering if you could give us a snapshot, like when you were a maintainer, like what do you wish the flyers knew, you know, about your day-to-day down there, and what life is like, and how things are different now that you're kind of on our side.
Yeah. Well, from the maintenance perspective, is really different in terms of, composition first. There's like 4 officers down there, you know, so a lot of the stuff that we have all you guys for, leadership wise, they don't have that. So they develop their people a little bit different, but I don't know, but I think maintenance perspective wise, the flyers, sometimes they're very focused on which operational thing you need, you know, getting the aircraft in the air, or you know, I need this training sortie, you know, or I mostly deal with flight engineers on a lot of this, on, you know, why we don't have this, you know, this widget, this oxygen bottle, whatever the case may be. And we end up in all these little conversations to get to the same end goal, which is we want you to fly, especially with Fred. We want that thing to leave, you know, because it seems from the moment we start that sequence of events of launch to the time it takes off, we are fighting Fred for that sortie. But I think perspective wise is if you've got, you know, a young crew chief or somebody that's telling you, hey, no, this isn't going to work, and they're not telling you that because they don't want you to fly, they're telling you that because it's a safety thing. Safety is the number one priority, you know, for us and you. I'll let you in on a little bit. When I was an F-15 crew chief, I was expediting one day in 2008. I keyed the radio to watch Lieutenant Colonel Boulay take off during a red flag. He's the commander of the 65th Aggressor Squadron, and he didn't come back. His plane crashed in a flat spin out in the Nevada desert, and you know, he passed away in that crash. Ejected at a very low level, using his experience to try to save the aircraft. And despite anything anyone could tell us, every maintainer on that ramp, which we all gave about 14 vials of blood that day and about 3 cups of drug testing. We all sat, because the reason they tested us all was we had all touched that plane within 72 hours of it crashing. And I don't know, every one of us questioned every single thing we signed off while we were sitting around waiting for that. Because the worst feeling you can ever feel is that you may be compromised your integrity and it costs someone their life. And on a crew airplane, you're not going to lose just one. Obviously, we don't see a lot of C5s meet their end. I think the most recent was the Dover aircraft. But I think about Colonel Boulay all the time. And if you go to Nellis, 65th Aggressor Squadron is gone now, but there's a building named after him there. And so if you drive by it, kind of know who Lieutenant Colonel Tom Boulay was. But I would never say that I've ever grounded an aircraft for any other reason than that I wanted you guys to live through the day. You don't have EOR on heavies, but to put that in perspective, I've sent a lot of planes back to the spot to keep a pilot safe from himself, because this squadron's a little different. I think you guys have a pretty good grip on safety, but I think that a lot of pilots get so focused on, well, if I can rearrange circumstances, I can get out there and I can fly. I'll get my training, or I'll get my, I'll get downrange and get back, and the mission will be done. But I need you to come back every time. So if you ever were wondering why maintenance is questioning that flight, that's probably why. But at the same time, if you haven't studied the MEL and studied the measle, take some time to look at that document, because it is a little weird and complex on C5, and it'll break down every single system that we can and can't have based on what base we're leaving, whether it's an A base like Travis or a B base, like one of your en routes, So the knowledge is right there to tell us what we can do, can't do, what's flyable, what's not. And sometimes the pro super and the aircraft commander and whoever your flight engineer is need to be locked in on those documents, so that you guys are all speaking from the same language on what's needed to get out of that location. So of course, rely on your FCC for that when you're on the road, because he or she can teach you a lot about what is flyable or not. Because if you haven't noticed, the C5 is really easy to get out of the B base if you're creative and you're using your ORM to solve problems, or to stay ahead of the curve and fly safely.
All right, thanks. Sparky, man, throw something out here, man.
So I get to work with the shirt, which is really interesting to see. I have learned a lot just seeing what he deals with. Similar to Colonel Pollock's speech the other day, where he was kind of like, I deal with something really crappy and then something like really cool, like 1 minute after the other. I think the shirt has to do a lot of the same stuff. I guess a question I would ask the shirt, kind of similar to Colonel Pollock got it, is what are some good ways to try to kind of balance the emotions of having to deal with those things, like maybe one right after the other or multiple in the same day, like paperwork versus promotions, and how do you handle it?
For me, in the moment, it's a lot of compartmentalization. So, and of course, having the ability to at least see a little bit of it coming always helps. But the phone doesn't always stop ringing, so that's not always the case. So you kind of have to shut everything else off, because your brain, despite what we think, can only hold one situation at a time effectively. Compartmentalize a little bit. If somebody comes in with a major life issue, close the door, deal with it, give it your full attention, because that's what that person deserves and they need to be heard. But then you might come out of that and you're like, oh crap, well, it's promotion ceremony time, and you can you can fully feel that as a person and go enjoy that moment. And sometimes you need to, like, oh God, man, I can't believe I just heard what I just heard. But let's go in the heritage room and celebrate a little bit. You know, maybe have some Chick-fil-A or whatever happened. You know, and then of course, I know this sounds a little cliche, but taking a little PT time at the end of all that is good to build up your endorphins and kind of release some of this, because you are going to have a little bit of angst if it's been a particularly busy day with people's issues. But in the moment, I can't say that there's any remedy, you know. But the worst thing you can do though is pretend. You know, don't sit and pretend that everything's fine, happy, and whatever, or just you can compartmentalize. But if you are fake, you are going to be noticed. So just, you know, genuinely delve into each moment and in a genuine way, because there's plenty of time for happiness and otherwise. But between that and if you've worked in an office environment, you know, you've got to prioritize, as in know that I have to get X, Y, and Z done today, but maybe this other thing can wait till tomorrow and I can go decompress a little bit and maintain my sanity.
Any other questions out there? I got one. So with all your experience, you know, speaking from an officership perspective, what are some of the most positive traits and behaviors you've seen from successful officers that, you know, you've learned from and you think are important for us to kind of focus on and talk about?
One of the biggest ones I'd say is the ability to selflessly get in the weeds. Not in the weeds of like maybe a specific problem, but be part of the team with the people. You know, if you've ever had a commander that's like this, Colonel Pollock's a good example of it most of the time. I'm Colonel Hammerschmidt, the outgoing maintenance group commander. Guys like that have this way of showing up and being amongst the people, and you walk away going, man, that person really cares about the whole squadron. And if you can put that out in front of you and wear it on your sleeve, that says a lot to an enlisted person about how, you know, how the officers in your squadron feel about you. There's going to be times where you have to command and be, you know, be the hard-lined officer that you're required to be. I mean, that's stuff that's often a closed-door conversation, you know, for an administrative situation. That's part of the job. You can't get away from it. But when you're not doing that, you can be real. You can go down and PT with your flight, and there's a reason you guys are held to a little bit higher standard with PT, because, you know, when I see my 40-year-old commander lapping me on the track, I have to go, damn, I can do better than that because he can. It says something. You know, funny story about Colonel Hammerschmidt. I actually watched him run one-handed holding the guide on once, for quite a distance. And I thought, well, I'm out. That guy is far ahead of me in PT. He was my squadron commander at the time. And I just thought, wow, well, if that guy can do it, then I need to try a little harder. But we find that the good officers understand this inherently. They spend time with their people, and they're not, even though you're in charge, you just teach them you show them that you're human, and that and that you're leading with them, not just making arbitrary decisions, because everything is well thought out.
I just got a funny visual. I don't know if anyone else knows Colonel Hammerschmidt, but if you ever seen Iron Man, Jeff Bridges with the bald, he looks like Jeff Bridges in Iron Man with the bald head and everything, and just imagine him with the guide on. That cracks me up.
Yeah.
We got time for probably 2 more questions, Shirt, and then we have our pilot CT at 11. So I'm gonna open it up to everybody for probably 2 more.
All right.
They're not the chattiest bunch.
That's okay. We've talked a lot, so.
I can ask a question real quick.
Yes, sir.
There you go.
Just Lieutenant Weaver, with the new transition flight that we're doing right now, we're having like a lot of interaction, especially with our younger students that are in the squadron as well. So we're dealing a lot with their personal issues and things like that. So how would you suggest to us how to help them better with their personal issues, from your opinion?
Well, I'll say that is a little bit situationally dependent, but perspective first. You've got a lot of very young airmen that just left mom and dad's house. They're 19, 20 years old, and a lot of them haven't lived on their own yet. And the ones that have are wondering why they're stuck in the dorm being treated like children. And because if you look at it as a life progression wise, it's like you move out of your mom and dad's house, and your new parents are the Air Force. And dorm life and technical training and at your base feels very much like you still kind of have parents, because you have me and some NCOs to come make sure their room's clean. They've got a chow hall to make them their food, and everything's still kind of provided. So there's an expectation from them that somebody's going to come take care of them on everything. I'm not saying that's 100% of airmen, but it is a vast majority of 19, 20-year-old kids that they're still trying to figure out life, and they're still developing that prefrontal cortex to make sound, consistent decisions. So first have that perspective that you're dealing with somebody that is to an extent still a kid. But I'd say help them with the major things in their lives that they can't get over. But if it's a financial issue, the AFRC can help them. Know your resources. Know that we've got mental health, we've got the MFLAC, and we've got Military One Source if they need counseling. If they just need to figure out how to adult, that's just kind of a skill you got to pull out of your bag. And you're like, oh, you've never secured an apartment before. You need first month's rent, right? And by the way, you can get a pay advance for that. Bring finance your lease. But at the same time, if they're handed any situation where, or you think they can do it, but they're just not wanting to do it, try to use your intuition a little bit and ask them a few questions, and they're going to kind of get this look on their face like, oh geez, well, I knew I could do that. Why did I ask you for help? Because I could have done it on my own. So try to grow them as people a little bit, and help them with what they don't know about, but try to lead them to start taking care of themselves, as adulthood is here.
Awesome, thank you. To that bit about knowing your resources, I've been to a lot of bases in the last what's it been, 23 years or so. So but a lot of that is a pilot. Like you go into these briefings when you first in process, and all these agencies come and talk to you, and I know I've done it myself where I just don't listen, because all my stuff is squared away. And I've been at bases like the last one I was at, Randolph, which is like a lieutenant colonel paradise. Like everyone's got their life squared away, so why do you care about these things? Well, in a unit like ours, there are people who need those resources, and you need to know about them, in case they're not tracking, or they forgot, or they're dealing with a million other things. So knowing what tools you have at your disposal and what are available will help you in those situations. When someone comes to you with a question, you can give them, it's okay to say I don't know, but it's better to have some options for people. All right, we are just about at time. Again, thank you, Sergeant Myers, for coming out. We're probably going to see you more next month, because all of next month we're going to take this show and bring it over to Joint PD, where it's going to be the whole squadron together talking about stuff. And our speaker next week is going to be Sergeant Morales. We're going to be talking about speaking truth to power. So I'm gonna hang out here till everyone kind of leaves the room and heads over to CT in case anyone wants to chat offline about anything. Thank you again, Shirt, and we'll see you all in CT and then next week. Thanks.
See you guys.
Lindsay, it's Waverly. When did you live in Barksdale?
Oh, it was my last assignment.
That's my hometown.
My